90% of businesses fail within 10 years. And it's no wonder that ends up happening, because if you don't have access to the right information to repeat the things that you need to repeat, you're set up for disaster.
The Content Capitalist Podcast.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Content Capitalist Podcast. Today my guest is somebody who's done a lot of things and had multiple careers, like as if he lived multiple lives. He's the CEO of TriWorld, business consulting firm. He specializes in scaling companies and is involved in acquisitions. He's collaborated with Fortune 500 companies, helped businesses expand, improve profitability, reduce turnover. Now, if that wasn't enough, before he did this, he was a professional boxer. He was featured on ESPN, HBO, Telemundo, started at 17 years old. Quite a career. Welcome to the show, Danny.
Thank you for having me, man. Thank you.
I want to make sure I'm getting your last name pronounced right. Calafell or Calafell?
Just say it the way it sounds. Calafell.
Calafell.
Sound it out.
Calafell. All right. Danny Calafell. Welcome. Now, Danny, I want to kick this off with asking you a question. And this is the first time we're speaking. And I'm looking at you online. You're working with Grant Cardone. You're really expanding in business, succeeding really, really well. And you're a professional boxer before. I want to talk a bit about your boxing career, because I looked it up. You started at 17, super young, worked super hard, 2008 to 2018, right? 10 years.
Actually, 18 years. 18 years if you want to count the amateurs.
There you go. And you did 6 professional fights, right?
Yeah, I had six pro fights.
Those didn't exactly go your way. So I want you to kind of get me into the psychology of, like, how does that work? And how did that affect what you're doing right now? And tell me a bit about the boxing career and then that pivot to what you're doing.
Yeah, great. So you want me to go like back in time? You want me to take you back in time?
Yeah, a little bit. Because I think a lot of people would see that as a career failure. It looks like you have taken a different meaning to that.
There's losses in the eye of the public, and there's losses in the eye of, behind the scenes. I had bad management coming up. So when you say things didn't exactly go my way, it was actually put on me in that way. So a lot of people in the entertainment industry know, like, when you don't have good management, you don't have people behind you, you fall victim to the industry. And that's exactly what happened to me. But, I wouldn't have been able to be put in the positions that I was in throughout my career had, things not been in the favor that I know that I was in. For example, I've been in there with the best in the world. I had 3 camps coming up, and every other week it was pay-per-view in and out of that gym. Everybody was in the top 5, top 8 in the world, all the way up to, current world champions, Hall of Famers. So you name it, I was in there with them. And like I said, my first fight was on ESPN, Friday Night Fights. I was on HBO, Telemundo, like you said, Univision, Showtime. So my manager at the time was Nate Campbell, former 3-time world champion, Hall of Famer. But before that, what got me into boxing was, I'm out from the streets. So, I came up rough in Miami, and I have family in New York. And from an early age, like since I was 14, I've been on my own. And I didn't really have the right guidance because I was on my own. And what do kids normally do when they feel like they don't fit in society? They try to do things to try to fit in society. So they try to connect with people that they relate with, that they can connect with, that they can, feel that sense of comfort where they're not getting from other places, which in my case, I wasn't getting anywhere. I didn't have anybody to guide me. My family was there, but they weren't. My father was always traveling. He saw me when he could. My mother was always working. I grew up, bottom, middle class, poverty. I found myself in the streets 14, and I always joined 2 gangs. I used to get picked on as a kid. So I wanted to be around people that not only would protect me, but would teach me things to be able to defend myself and then be there for me when when the time came. And that led to drugs. You name it, I did it. Only thing I didn't do was shoot up, but everything under the sun you can name, I did. And I tried. And, I died at I think I was 15. They had to bring me back to life. I OD'd, and it was alcohol mixed with drugs. And I was in a coma for 2 days. They had to revive me. And like 2 weeks later, I'm right back and doing the same thing. So I say this to say that I got into the sport of boxing the same way that a lot of the elite athletes that you see in that sport, they get in. We grow up rough. We don't go to Harvard or Yale. We come from a rough upbringing, and that's what brings the beast out of us that needs to be brought out to put on a show for the world to be able to see. My first time I stepped in the gym, I was 17, and my father was always trying to get me in there. Every time that he would see me, he was always trying to convince me, but I wouldn't listen to him. I wasn't listening to anybody. But finally, I told him, I was like, all right, I'm tired of this route. Show me what the gym's all about. Let's see what happens. So we went to the gym down in Miami, South Beach, Muhammad Ali had a gym. He used to train on 7th Street and 7th and Washington in South Beach. And I ended up meeting, actually it was 5th Street gym. And I ended up going over to 7th Street. And the owner, she actually opened up that gym. I'm still friends with her to this day. She opened that gym up with Muhammad Ali and Angelo Dundee, which was Ali's trainer. And the moment I stepped foot in the gym, I fell in love with the sport. And then at that moment, no more drugs, no more street life, no more none of that. It was just 100% dedication to the sport. I fell in love with it. And at that moment, I was like, all right, if I'm going to get good, I need to be around people that are much, much better than me. So I started connecting with people, with pros at the time, because I didn't want to be around the people that were like me, that were just learning. So I thought I knew how to fight till I got in the ring, and I found that I didn't. And then as I started leveling my game up, I found myself getting beat up a lot more, but I was actually learning stuff. And from that moment on, it started becoming an addiction to want to be around people better than me, want to be around that type of environment that was real tough, because that's the way that I grew up. So I went from that gym and that circumstance to then being around, like I mentioned, world champions, guys doing pay-per-view fights and all of that, and working my way up to turning pro. Now, at the time that I was amateur and I was doing that, I was also doing club promotions. I was part of a promotional company down here in Miami. We're the biggest promotion company down here. And I was doing a lot of networking. I was, we would book artists. At that time, it was mainly hip hop. And I was connecting with the artists because I knew that was something that I've always had a passion for music. I played 5 instruments by ear before I learned how to read music. So like music's always been a passion. But I was connecting with the artists because I was like, maybe we can do something when I end up taking this career-wise. And they loved that I was a fighter. So it just, the synergy was always there. And I made a lot of connections, great contacts. And fast forward, when I started boxing professionally, that was actually my first business, which was in the music industry. I got really close with Mr. Cheeks from the Lost Boys. He's a rapper up in New York. That's my older brother. He introduced me to the Marleys, Bob Marley's sons. And I remember I was in the studio with Steven, and, he's recording an album, and he looked at me and, they all call me Champ. And he was like, Champ, what do you want to do after the sport? And I'm 24 years old, man. I was like, I don't know. I just want to go out and be the best that I could be. I just want to put on shows and win a couple of titles and just, make a ton of money and that's it. And he was like, yeah, but then what? And I didn't have a response. I remember at one of his shows, it was a big show. They did a reggae fest down here, and we were backstage, and a photographer came up to me and he was taking pictures. He recognized me. He was like, I think I saw one of your fights and whatnot. And, we exchanged information. He wanted to open up a record label. And I said, man, all I got to do is pick up my phone and just you tell me who to call and I can get in contact with them. And that was actually my first business. Didn't work out the way that we wanted it to. We lost a lot of money, lost a lot of time. I learned a lot. And that's when I decided, I was like, I'm tired of putting my future in the hands of other people. It's time that I take control. So that's when I started the consulting business, TriWorld. And I started that because I was like, I wanted to do something for businesses. Actually, it was originally aimed for entertainment. But then I switched over to corporate, like more of on the corporate side of business. And that's it. I mean, I don't have a story like you typically hear where people saying, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur and all. Look, man, I started that business. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Okay. I was knocking on doors, getting thrown out. I was making phone calls, getting hung up on. I was like, this is the most frustrating thing I've ever experienced, because I'm so used to picking up the phone, talking to people, connecting with people, and just going in wherever it is, because I had contacts. And for the first time, it was so most frustrating because for the first time I was up against resistance that I wasn't really used to. I was always embraced by a lot of people. And this time it was like, shut the door, hang the phone up, push me out, tell me I have to leave. And that's when I learned I had to understand sales and I had to understand business. I thought that I knew what I was doing, and I realized that I didn't. So when I started the company, I was making nothing. And then I started surrounding myself around the right people. I know that's thrown out there a lot, but I started reaching out to my contacts and getting in contact with people that I knew that knew business, learning from them. My father's always been behind me. He didn't really understand a lot of what it was that I was doing because he comes from a different background, but he's worked with some of the largest companies. I mean, he's done, I'm sure you saw his background, he's done mergers, acquisitions with companies doing, 4, 5, 600 million. He's bought companies, 800 million, 900 million reach. So, I had him to lean on. My uncle was VP of ExxonMobil. He just retired. I come from that background, and that's when I started just going into my power base, learning stuff, as well as starting to codify what it was that I was experiencing. And what I didn't realize at the time was I was actually codifying sales. So I would actually record myself making a call. I would actually I knew that I wasn't supposed to do that, but I did it anyways. And I'd have like a little microphone in my pocket. So when I'd walk in places, I'd record the conversation just to hear myself. I didn't do it for solicitation or anything. I mean, this is 2010, 2011. This is when Facebook first came out. I was basically just, not only self-taught, but I used the power base that I had to really just start building that momentum up. And fast forward, I mean, here I am today. We did a little over 4 million last year. I got over 100 people under me and growing. And now I own 3 businesses instead of just one. I have my workshop and seminar business, which is Danny Calafell, the brand. And I have Cowboy Ventures with another partner of mine. It's the acquisition company where we buy companies north of 10 million, hand it to TriWorld to scale them up, and then go back over to Calmore and resell them, hold them. And the goal for that business is we're going to start taking companies. I'd like to have the experience to take a company public. So that's the goal I have for the acquisition company. I hope I didn't stretch it out too much, man.
No, I think we got a pretty, good idea of what you're up to and the kind of the path that took us there. And at what point did you start identifying yourself not as a pro boxer, but as a business person? Like, was there a trigger, a decision?
You know what's funny when you say that? For a long time, I was worried to express that I used to fight because of the criticism that some athletes get when they step away from whatever sport they're stepping away from and they're going into the business world. And I'm sure you could understand that. Like, there's a lot of criticism that comes along with that. Like, it's the criticism because most of the time when you hear about stuff like that, it doesn't end up being very successful. So I was very hesitant to say that, but then I started realizing, I'm not being myself. And I didn't like that because it felt very authentic and I felt like I was lying to people. So when I ended up dropping that idea and I just started embracing, look, this is my background. This is where I come from. I used to fight and now I'm going head into business. Well, how'd you learn business? Well, great question. I got around people that know what the hell they're doing and that are the best of the best. And I kept leveling my game up by being around people like that. So that started giving me a lot more credibility because they're like, okay, this is not a guy who's coming in acting like he knows everything. This is a guy who's coming in wanting to learn from people that are a hell of a lot better than him and in much higher stages, taking that and now applying it to what he's got going on. So I started getting a lot more people embracing, that. So I don't not identify myself as, I'll always be a fighter. I'm always going to be, I never forget where I came from. I'm a street guy first, I'm a fighter second, and I'm a businessman third. And I tell that to people all the time. And I'm me. I'm as real as they come, man. I'm authentic.
Thanks for that. I was looking through some of the stuff you published, right? I see photos of you in your studio. I see, different, situations. And there seems to be a lot of influence and collaboration with Grant Cardone. Can you tell me how you kind of came into his world or he came into yours? And what's that relationship with you guys right now?
Yeah, man. So I had, at the time, I think we had, what was it? I had 19 employees when I had the record company. And then when I dropped that, we ended up picking up about 8 people after a while of the momentum I was trying to bring up with TriWorld. And I remember at the time, I wanted to run some motivational meetings. So I get on the phone with my father and I was like, I'm trying to find some inspiration for these guys. He's like, just go on YouTube. And I was like, oh yeah, all right, let me go on YouTube. So I went on YouTube and sure enough, I found Grant. And for a little bit, I was like, okay, I like what he's saying. I like what's going on. I started understanding a little bit more. Ended up buying one of the programs, which was Cardone University at the time. And I started submersing myself a little bit in the material. And at that time, I was also doing sales training. So I was doing sales training, consulting, and we were selling marketing and software services. And I would go to businesses and I was doing in-person training, similar to what Grant was doing. So I was doing seminars, workshops, and live training one-on-one with companies, with service-based business, commercial businesses. So, landscaping companies, plumbers, contractors, real estate, all that stuff. And as I was doing that, I started building up a nice little arsenal because as I was learning sales, I was like, man, I could teach this stuff because this is different. This is something like nobody else is doing stuff like this. I'm realizing it. And I was like, okay, so I started building out in-person courses with material and stuff like that. I got up to about 463 courses. And then I was like, man, I want to scale this thing out because we do business globally. So I have customers in South America, Europe, India, Asia. And I was like, man, to really scale this thing out, it's going to take me forever to do this by myself. And I was like, I got to collaborate with somebody. I'm a very big advocate because I've gotten screwed over in the past, including an ex-partner of mine that I lost over $1 million with him. And I'm a very big advocate I only want to work with the best. And that came from my boxing career, okay? Because I knew working with the best brings the best out of me. And working with the best gives me the ability to deliver the best to my customers. So I was like, I only want to work with the best. So I started researching companies that were doing sales training. And I was like, I grew up a certain way as far as with my core values, as far as honesty, transparency, straightforwardness. I'm very big on that. And I didn't want to just deal with anybody. I don't like the styles that a lot of these sales methods, folding your arms where the customer folds their arms, asking questions in order to answer a question they have, they ask you. And I didn't like that. And as I was looking, Grant was right in front of my face the whole time. So I was like, you know what? All right. So we went to an event. I brought my father with me. He's VP of my company. And I within 5 minutes, I was like, what do you think of him? He was like, I like him. I was like, good, because I want to partner with him. He was like, go for it. I was like, okay. So one thing led to another. And the partner I have now, we got together and did that deal. So if you ask the relationship, I'm partners with Grant Cardone. So that's an add-on. So it's basically, we're an extension of Grant and the team, and it's an add-on to the arsenal of services. We have 26 services that we inject into businesses to scale them. And, we're working with Fortune 500s to companies that are just a thought. And a lot of the services, everything 10X from Cardone University, a lot of the material on the business side, the marketing side, stuff like that. So we inject a lot of the stuff into businesses and scale them up.
That's cool. Thanks for getting us up to date on that. Now, I've gone through and I found a few things that you put out online, and I'm going to read them to you. And I want to hear your kind of expansion on these. So here's something you put out. Repetition breeds habit. Habit breeds instinct. And the right instincts breed greatness.
Yeah, it's a chain reaction. I mean, we always talk about a lot of things like that we talk about when it comes to confidence. Like there's a lot of cases where people don't really understand where they get that confidence from. And what we always say is it's the repetition, but the right information.
So repetition in terms of sales calls, in terms of?
It's everything. Everything. The way you do anything is the way you do everything. Right? So it's repetition in all areas. If I'm repetitive in the mistakes that I'm making, let's say it's a personal relationship, romantic relationship, if I'm repetitive in the mistakes that I'm making and I'm not willing to try to correct those mistakes, and the only way I can correct them is getting access to the right information to understand what it is I'm doing wrong so I can start doing things right. That repetition is going to create habits. That's going to create instincts. That's then going to create a failed relationship. And if you tie that into business, it's the same concept. Most people that start a business, people go to school for business. School does not teach the things that businesses are hit with after a certain point. School only teaches so much. And I have a big problem. I have a big problem with the education system when it comes to that because, I know a lot of people, I'm going to get a lot of backlash for this, but a lot of people learn business and they're learning from a college professor that never started a business. And if he did, it wasn't as successful as a business that they're trying to build, because if it was, he wouldn't be working for the college. He'd have his own college. So you're learning. So we start off learning the wrong information, trying to apply it to what it is we're doing, and then wonder why we fail. And then we're repetitive at doing the wrong information and then can't understand why we continue to fail and why we can't continue to grow this. If we're looking at stats, you got to look at it. 64% of businesses out there either make no money or break even. 54% of businesses make less than $40,000 a year. 3 out of 4 businesses fail within 5 years. 90% of businesses fail within 10 years. And it's no wonder that ends up happening, because if you don't have access to the right information to repeat the things that you need to repeat, you're set up for disaster.
Thanks for that. Appreciate it. That actually segues really well into the next one I've got. Here's something else you put out there online. Make success your duty, responsibility, and obligation.
It's a responsibility to be successful. I'm a big believer in that, and I took that from Grant.
Responsible to who?
It's a responsibility to society. I think it's very selfish for people to get information and want to keep it to themselves and not be able to give opportunities to others to be able to flourish and grow like that. I think it's a very selfish move when I see people do that. You ask a lot of times people as far as what they want in their life. success-wise. And most of the time you hear them talking about themselves and they don't talk about the contribution that they want to make. And I think that the whole and I say I think because, you know, I'm growing still. You know, I have a long way to go. A lot of people tell me that I'm all this and all that, and I'm very hard on myself. So I don't feel like I've accomplished much, to be honest with you. That's just the way I view it, because I'm always pushing. But the point I'm making here is that, you know, I've learned so much over the years. Grant's not the only billionaire I've been around. I've been around 3 others. And being around tons of success since I was 17, it's taught me that I'm learning all this stuff. What good is all the information that I have? What good is it if I can't spread it out? I got an aunt, she's Cindy Stumpo. She's one of the biggest developers in the U.S., female. And she's big on giving back. And she told me, she was like, Danny, you know, what good is all the money that I have if I can't help the people that I want to help and share it with my loved ones? And I was like, you're so right. And so that's that responsibility that comes in. It's, you know, I mean, one of my goals is to impact 1 billion people. You know, I'm very big on giving back. I'm going to turn the TriWorld. This will be a $100 million business within the next 6 years. That's the viewpoint. And I don't want hundreds of people. I want thousands of people to be working for me, because I want to be able to open up the door to be able to create opportunities for people to be able to make money, help their families, and change their circumstances. That's where the responsibility comes in.
So tell me about this then. To get to your goal, you said 100 million in 5 years, right? Or 6 years. Where are you now? And how are you going to bridge that gap?
We're at, like I said, we're at over 4 million. I took a little bit of a hit last year. How I'm going to bridge that gap? Driving more revenue in, getting my name out there more, doing things like this, connecting with more people, continuing to invest in myself, to show up places, to figure out what it is that I don't know, to see if I can even make that 6-year gap even shorter. That's what it's all about. I tell this to people all the time. They always ask me as far as, hey, Danny, you know, I got a bunch of money. Where can I put this money in? And my first question to them is, okay, well, how much are you making right now? And how much did you make last year? Because if you're only making, and I say only because I used to think $100,000 was a lot of money till I got around 100 grand, until I started making that. I used to think $1 million was a lot of money till I got around $1 million. I used to think 10 million was a lot of money till I got around that. And, you know, as I continue going up that ladder, I start to realize and understand money a lot more. And, you know, I understand what it is that's needed in order to continue to grow and in order to hit the goals that I have, which is the number one goal, is to be able to create opportunity to be able to help a lot more people. And you need a lot of money to be able to do that. And I think that's a lot of people's goal. I think deep down inside, everybody wants to help people. It's just the circumstances that they're in, they have no choice but to have to think about themselves. They get trapped. So like going back to what I said, as far as that answer that I give people, it's you got to put it back into yourself. I put hundreds of thousands of dollars into myself, you know, to understand what I understand now, to be able to grow my business the way that I've grown it today. And there's still things that I know that I need to understand in order, like I said, to shorten that gap up. And I look at somebody like Grant, who's not only a partner, but a huge mentor of mine. Like he's, to this day, he surrounds himself with people where he's the smallest guy in the room, and he's dumping in tons of money to continue to learn. And he's sitting front row with his notepad up and, you know, taking notes. And I think that's what it's all about, because he understands that there's things that he doesn't understand and he doesn't know. And there's maybe quicker ways that he could be doing things. So I look at people like that, and I'm very big on studying and learning. And, you know, I study the wealthy. And I mean, I just see that's the common denominator for them all. It's just, what can I do to make an impact? And who do I need to learn from? And what do I need to understand that I don't understand right now? How much money is that going to cost me to understand that? And that's that direction. So to answer your question, I got to dump a hell of a lot more into myself so I can make that gap a lot shorter.
Yeah. You know, I was with Tony Robbins for a while doing his Platinum Partnership program. And I think that the one thing that really was the biggest mover, like as far as moving the needle in my success, that he told me was proximity is power. And you're saying the same thing here, just in different words. Getting around the right kind of people that have the influence gives you power in two ways. There's the osmosis. You kind of start to see how they behave, how they operate, how they think, how they make decisions, how they move, how they communicate, right? And it rubs off on you, number one. And number two is, if you are on their radar, then there's a high chance that in some level they're going to be able to help you or going to want to help you to succeed, whether through advice, through resources, through connections, through anything. So for me, yeah.
There's a piece to that I want to add in. You're dead on. There's a piece to that. And proximity is power. Knowledge needs to be fit in there as well, because I tell this to people all the time. Everybody's always, it's your Your network is your net worth. Okay, that gets thrown out there a lot. Okay, to a degree, it's your net worth because there's certain people that you can have a very close connection with, but if they don't have enough trust and faith that by them either investing in you or lending you some money or doing business with you, if they don't have enough faith that you're able to carry that torch, they're going to hold back a little bit. So I always tell people, you got to put yourself in a position where your network is going to want to do business with you, especially when you're dealing with people that are much more successful. So I always look to offer and to try to ask that type of question. Like, hey, listen, what's it going to take for me to do business with you? You know, where do I need to be at? What do I need to do? What do you expect of me? You know, these are questions that I'm looking to get answers to. So I know more or less like where I need to be. And then it's like, all right, I need 2 million. Let's throw it towards this. And that's the thing that a lot of people scratch their heads on. You know, you look at like these big, like the monsters in the world as far as successful people. And, you know, you see them in this network where it's like to them borrowing 10, 20 million, 5 million. It's like, okay, yeah, I just borrowed that to go ahead and do this. And then people are scratching their heads why, like, damn, I'd like to borrow 5 million. Yeah, but those people have already proven themselves. They're in a position where it's like, you give me the money, I know what to do with it, and I'll pay you back. There's always going to be risk, but there's a smaller risk there because it's already been proven. That makes sense?
It's that repetition thing again coming. Yeah, we talked about just earlier.
That's it.
Okay, you put out content on online, right? You've got your Danny Calafell TV, you've got YouTube, you've got Instagram. And here I picked up a quote you said. It says, I deliver content to inspire, educate, and motivate those that want more out of business and life. When did you start producing content, and when did you like really dive in and start making it a big part of your strategy?
That's a good question. I don't know. I've never been shy in front of the camera. I just turn on the camera on and I just roll. Like, you know, I mean, sometimes there's some cases where I get like a loss of words. In the beginning, there was like a loss of words. I didn't really know. I had to like repeat things a couple of times to like really catch it. But I just, you know, this is like way back even in the music industry. I was putting out videos for like talent searches and stuff like that I would just push out. But content for like business, I don't know. I was just like, let me just start doing some stuff and put some stuff out there so I could show a little bit of credibility. And, you know, maybe this could help inspire, or this can help teach some of the tricks that I've learned that's worked for me. I don't really like to say tricks. Some of the techniques or some of the strategies that's worked for me. And it's just something that I just started, you know, really getting into. Then I did a show. It was called The Corner, which I might start bringing that back. It was just, you know, just giving free advice, like, you know, 20 minutes. I pick a topic and just run with it. A lot of times, like I'd call up businesses and I'd say, hey, listen, you know, if you don't want to do business with me right now, hey, no problem. Why don't we do this? Let me go ahead and send you one of my videos. Run a meeting with your guys using some of the strategies. Let me know if it worked. I'll give you a call back and we take it from there if you like it. So I would use that as forms of follow-up and techniques and stuff like that. So,
and I know that, you know, with Grant, for example, he uses his social media to, you know, really generate a lot of leads sometimes when he's looking for investors, when he's looking for people to join his different programs. Like he works that thing and he runs ads like crazy. Is there any of that promotional advertising marketing happening for you on social media as well?
Yeah.
So tell me about that. What kind of results are we getting with social media, and how's that?
Obviously, I don't have as big of his name and I don't have as big of a budget yet as Grant. So I use that as momentum. I remember the last meeting he was like, you know, you guys need to use the momentum I have and push out. Like that's what it's all about. So like we just talked about as far as collaboration. So collaboration is the new currency. I'm looking at it where, I mean, whatever he pushes out, I mean, I'll repost, I'll push out as well. I mean, it's all going to the same place. You know, whether people are going to buy from me or they're going to call HQ and they're going to go ahead and buy from the office. They're buying the same stuff. We're all on the same mission here, and that's to help people. So, I mean, that's why I got with Grant. And so I don't look at it necessarily as competition. I look at it as opportunity. The more he's out there, the more it helps me and people like me. And then that way it gives me the ability to be able to help out others. He pushes out content, I'm sharing it. I'll pull it out and I'll send it to a customer. I'll say, hey, listen, look at what we got coming up right now. He's got a webinar coming up. It's free. He says 1 hour. He'll probably be on there for 3 hours. Guarantee you're going to learn something. You're going to have that aha moment. There's probably going to be some notes you're going to write down. And we can have a discussion about that. And let's see what we can do business-wise for you after that's said and done. And then, you know, a lot of times it's like clockwork. It works. To answer your question, right now I'm just riding on a coattail until, you know, my name starts becoming a lot more popular. And then I could start, you know, then it makes more sense for me to, start pushing my name as well.
So what's happening is like he's kind of the face and the brand. And when people buy the program, then like the partnership you have is that you're actually the one like that delivers the program itself. Is that kind of how it works?
Yeah, in some cases. There's also hybrids where like I throw a lot of my stuff on top as well. So it's like a mixture of Grant and Danny.
And when people find you directly and they want to work with you, like what's the typical path from when like never heard of Danny to happily paying customer / client? Can you kind of paint that picture for us? What are the dots that we can connect?
We have a process. So we have what's called the sales process.
I'm so glad that we got to this.
Yeah, we have what's called the sales process. So like there's a sequence that a lot of people fail to follow. And it's just like anything else. It's like a recipe. Grant likes to call it recipe. So like you're making a cake, you miss a step, the cake's not going to come out right. You miss an ingredient, the cake's not going to come out right. Not going to taste right. So there's a certain sequence of things that need to be in there, as well as, a certain type of ingredients, you could say, that need to be put in that.
Not only that, there's timing, temperature, everything,
Right. So from start to finish, I mean, it's really just, really finding out what's going to solve the customer's problem. And that.
But how do they find you in the first place? How do people first find out about you?
All through online, or we're making calls.
So it's outbound.
Oh, yeah. Majority of the business that I get right now is all outbound. Yeah, we prospect 80%. And this is what we tell the customers. 80% of our time is dedicated to prospecting. 80% of our time a day.
And nowadays, like, what's the typical pickup rate?
You mean as far as churn? Like, what do you mean pickup rate?
Well, you're calling out, right? And most people don't like picking up their phones anymore. So out of like every 10 calls or 100 calls, like how many people actually pick up?
It varies.
I guess because I've hired other agencies that did this in the past, right? So, like sometimes you have, like 5%, it's like 1 out of 20, right? Sometimes, it's 10%, and like, yeah, different sectors vary and things like that. But, like, I'm just kind of curious in your industry.
With us, they always pick up. Yeah, because we call them until they do.
Well, that's one way to look at it. Like either they will or they did, right?
No, they will. Look, there's business owners out there that, they're busy. They're busy just like everybody else. Like a lot of people take this stuff personal. Like I've learned I've been doing this 15 years. So like, over the course, like I've been called every name you could think of. I've taken everything personal that you could think of. I've been embarrassed. I've been humiliated. I've been in front of customers with my sales guy or sales guys, been embarrassed, been told to leave, been forced to leave, had security called. Not that I was even doing anything wrong. They just wanted to make a scene. And, so at this point, man, like none of this stuff phases.
You got pretty thick skin. Just doesn't bother you, right?
And I don't take it personal because I understand, like you call somebody, especially when it's an outbound call, you're stopping them from what they're doing. They're normal people. A lot of people think that like, I'm calling this person and they're running a 50 or 100 or $200 million business. They got, they're normal people. They got kids. They got to go to the bathroom. They got to eat food. They got a life of their own outside of business. So like they're living their lives. So, I mean, I go at it with that mentality as far as like, all right, well, look, I'm interrupting you. Let me tell you why. I'm stopping you from doing what you think is important, right? Let me tell you why this call is more important than what you're doing right now. It's that back and forth pull, knowing what to say, knowing how to respond, which is the reason why a lot of salespeople fail. They fail for two reasons. They don't know what to say. They don't know how to respond. And, once you get back and forth, then it's finding out, what's important to that customer. What problem are you looking to solve for them and how can you show them that? And that's what it really comes down to, So, I mean, that's that whole ping pong game or tennis match we always talk about,
Yeah, got it. So we're connecting the dots here. It's outbound. You connect with them. You find someone, they're qualified. They can use service. Do you schedule a presentation or do you try to make the sale right there on that first call?
No. If anybody's doing that, they got it all wrong. Like you have to set up an appointment because you're catching that person at the wrong time. They're not going to give you the attention that you need. They're most likely, depending on the business and depending on the circumstance or the situation. I mean, I call on companies doing, 3, 4, 500 million, all the way down to companies that are just, like I said, an idea or, a dealership or a landscaping company that did $1 million or whatever the case is. Right. So there's different layers. There's sometimes you have multiple, bigger the company, the more decision makers. So it's more people that you have to get involved in order to even have a decision that's made. Sometimes they're long cycles. So you don't only want to depend on the bigger companies, because a lot of times like that's a long cycle. It takes a lot of, back and forth and more politics in that. Then when you come on down, then it's still like they don't have time right then and there. You're interrupting their day if it's outbound. So it's, hey, how do I get this guy to be interested enough so he can give me some time so I could show him what I can do to help him out? I need to find out what it is that he has going on, what's a problem is, what's he got going on right now. And then I could start, get to the point where I could offer something that, he'd take the bait on and he want to bite if you want to relate it to fishing.
Got it. And what's the average, package that you're selling these days? Is it in the, 10K range, 20, 30, 100?
Man, we got one program that's $450,000.
So pretty much you just evaluate what's going to work best for that prospect and then present them with the product and price point.
It's gotta be that way because I have so much, and we're continuing to push out more stuff. Like, look, I mentioned 463 courses. We're now up to 4,022. So, we're doing everything.
So pretty much there's a solution for everybody who's on the call, and you just got to match the solution to the person.
That's it. Like, and let me show you the connection here, right? So it's like, we're doing everything from sales training, marketing, business programs, okay, that include people. So it's, hiring, onboarding, training people. And then you have on the software side, implementation to enhance productivity and just, get the company to the stage where they're at a scaling stage and they're not at a survival stage. They're actually starting to grow, but then as they grow, come more problems. They need to bring on more people. They need to open up departments. They need to add people to those departments. Those departments need to be able to communicate with the other departments. Everybody's in sync. It's a process, right? We have stuff all the way down to somebody that's just a sales guy, and all the way down to, people that are employees of the business, all the way down to somebody who's just starting a business. They have an idea and they just need to become the leader that they need to become and understand like all the positions of a business. So they understand as they're growing their business, how to start putting people in the right place. And then from that point, then I have the acquisition company where we get them to the stage and they're a customer or not. And we're like, hey, listen, look, you get big enough, we'll just buy the company from you. And now we just start formulating an exit strategy for you, which most people also don't think about. The most disappointing thing I could tell you, Ken, the most frustrating and difficult thing and the most heartbreaking thing that I see is I see a lot of people when they build businesses, like people need to understand a business owner is not like an employee. Like you don't have Social Security. You don't have 401k. You don't have money being put in where when you retire, you're good. Like all you have is your blood, sweat, and tears of what it is that you created and hope that you create it big enough so when you retire, you got enough money to be able to live comfortably, or you got enough money to be able to do the things that you want to do and live the rest of your life. And the problem is most businesses don't hit that. And it's the most heartbreaking thing because they put in all that work and their business becomes worth nothing. So like what we do is we get a company to that stage to be able to get them to the point where they can have something profitable enough to be able to sell either to us or to somebody else and actually get something so they can say, hey, you know what? I'm going to invest some of my money into investment that's going to pay me some passive income, which is really the reason for starting a business in the first place. And then I have some money to be able to do the things that I want to do and take care of my family and take care of my loved ones and enjoy life. So like, that's the setup that we do. And like I said, sometimes it's just, hey, read a book. We had a kid who read one of Grant's books. He was sleeping in his car and, he was in a room and he talked about this. He was like, I was sleeping in my car. I read one of Grant's books. When in 1 year, I became a salesperson at a company making $150,000. And then I got involved in the programs that you guys got. My second year, I did $352,000, most money I made in my family. Those to me are huge wins. Because in 2 years, the guy went from sleeping in his car to making $300,000, more money than somebody in his family's made. That's a huge accomplishment. And that to me, that's the win,
Yeah. We got to wrap this up soon, but I have one final thing. It's something you said, and I'm also going to twist it into a question here. So what you said is success is your birthright. Make the most out of it and stop leaving money on the table. How are people leaving money on the table? And I know that there's probably going to be 100 ways, but I'd like to hear the one that you see happen the most and that you can give us some advice on how to fix that?
People leave money on the table because they're, instead of spending the money, this goes right back to what I just said as far as the reason of starting a business. So most people start a business because it's a passion or it's something they want to do or whatever the case is. And if the business starts to really build up traction and take off, it's not that they know what they're doing. It's they just got a good product or service that's selling off the shelves. Okay. Now, here's the mistake that a lot of people make that I see leaving money on the table is they start living this lifestyle because the business is making the money that it's making, and the business is feeding their lifestyle, and the business is feeding what it is that they're doing. They're taking trips, they're going places, they're buying nice things, they're doing nice stuff, they're enjoying life until they're not, because something ends up happening and their product or service stops selling. And at that moment, their life goes into a chaotic spiral and they start experiencing fear. Because they're like, okay, here we go again. And they don't know what to do. The money that's being left on the table that's not the reason for a business. The business is, how much do I need to put back in the business to continue to grow the business, to understand the things that I don't know, invest in the people that can teach me the things that I don't know so I continue to either scale, or I can bring people on that can help me scale, or resources on that can help me scale. Then the money that I make off of that, take that and start putting it to an asset, something that's going to pay me passive income over time, whether it's real estate, stock, buying business, whatever the case, investing in companies, whatever the case, that's the money that you're supposed to use to live the life that you want to live and go on the trips that you want to go on and stuff like that, because that's not earned income. That's passive income at that point. What I see the problem that most people do is they're using and spending their earned income, which is a big mistake. So that's where the money that's being left on the table is talked about. Like, you got to take the money, you put it towards something, make the passive income, and then you can live the life you want, because that money's going to keep coming to you. If you were talking about real estate, most real estate, you're signing a 20-year, a 25-year deal. So for the next 20, 25 years, you're getting paid. And the amount of money that you're putting in keeps going up.
I lied. I have one more question, and then I promise it's the last one. Okay. You having been a professional athlete, and obviously you probably heard something's coming up. Jake Paul or Tyson?
I knew you were going to say that.
So let's get it on record here. I want to hear your name, and then we'll circle back and see it afterwards.
No, we'll put it. We'll do it. Okay, look,
just a guess.
It's
for fun
it's
here,
entertaining, right? Man. Like I know the, like, and having I run the same circle as Mike. I met him a couple of times. I know him personally. I know both sides of Mike. There's a playful and fun, and he is. I tell people all the time, like, you want to know the insides of a fighter for real, listen to Mike Tyson. That guy is the most authentic, open book that you'll ever come across in a person, and the biggest heart. Okay. There's another side of Mike, though. And it's the side that you don't want to piss off, because there's a side of all, and this is, I'm speaking as a fighter. Like, there was two sides of me. There was the side of Danny that would go in and he becomes champ. And at that moment, all I see is red. I just see through a person. I don't see emotion. I don't see none of that. Only emotion I feel is mine. And it's pain, anger, and I'm just there. And then afterwards, I snap out of it and I'm just like, all right, cool. I hope I didn't hurt you too bad. Like, that's Mike. The difference is you got a heavyweight, you got a guy he's been doing this a while. So to answer your question, it goes in the direction that Jake wants it to go. If Jake pisses Mike off, I pray that Jake makes it out of there, not too hurt. If he doesn't, it could be a fun fight.
I'm really hoping for Mike, but I've just never seen such a big age difference in any match. So I think it could go either way.
I'll tell you this. Power is the last thing to leave a fighter.
But stamina.
It's power. It's power. Power is the last thing to leave a fighter. Like, you may lose timing, you may lose speed, but that power, Mike still has power. He still has power. Big power.
Well, thanks for that. Thanks for your opinion. So we got to wrap this up. I just want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing all this. And for everybody who's listening, if you're watching on YouTube, then please look down at the links below. There will be links to connect with Danny across his social media and his websites. And if you're listening on the podcast, make sure you check out the show notes. We're going to include everything there as well. Danny, any last words you want to leave us with before we peace out?
No, man. I mean, I think I spoke enough. I have these long-winded responses. honestly, man, like I said, I'm just a big advocate on just trying to give people the keys to be able to accomplish the things that they want to accomplish. So thank you for having me on here and introducing me to your audience. And I hope that everybody got at least something out of this that they can, they could take home and they could really put to use. And I'm here, man. I'm here. Anytime you want to do this again, we can roll. I can give you updates. And to the audience, I'm not hard to get in contact with. If there's anything I can do to help any of you guys out, I'm here. That's what this is all about.
All right. I appreciate that. Guys, do make sure to check out the links. And also, I'll see you next week.
No hustle, worship here, we're a different breed. Action is what we got if action is what you need. Content capitalists, we're breaking the mold. Cause the old ways fade, new stories to be told. So content capitalists, get to the prize.